I am so excited to introduce our speaker, Emily Baxter. As some of you in the audience know, and as Carol alluded just now, I work relatively closely with people who bear the labels of offender or felon or criminal. Those labels, once applied, have a lot of collateral consequences for people, including things like not being able to find housing, not being able to find employment. For me, Emily's work helps to highlight the often unfair and arbitrary way that those labels get applied, and the consequences that go with them. I do hope that you were able to get by the display, and if not, that you will stop and take a look at it. It's really very compelling, and it's to read about some of the stories that are the basis of Emily's message. So Emily Baxter is the executive director of We Are All Criminals. Prior to this, Emily served as director of public policy at the Council on Crime and Justice, and as an assistant public defender at the Regional Native Public Defense Corporation, representing members of the Leech Lake and White Earth bands of Ojibwe, people who were charged with crimes in the Minnesota State Courts. Emily's also a former fellow at the University of Minnesota Law School, and she began developing We Are All Criminals through an Archibald Bush Leadership Fellowship in 2012. So please join me in welcoming Emily Baxter. It stops now.
My bad.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for showing up in force. I understand that this is one of the few buildings that is not connected via underground tunnel, so I don't know that I would have made it. So thank you so much for coming. Today I want to share with you a little bit about a project I've been working on for the past several years, and then a portion of that project that I've been working on for just the last few months. Have you ever been convicted of an offense? Yes or no? That's the question that had been weighing upon Anthony's mind as he hovered in the back of the Hennepin County Government Center's basement room some 7 years ago. Yes, he would have to check on his job applications, the last 13 to be exact. Yes, on his college application. Yes, on his loan application. Yes, on his housing application. Yes, yes, yes. How would you respond? Have you ever been convicted of an offense? Perhaps like me, you could say no. If, however, you said yes, like Anthony, understand that you are one of the estimated 65 to 100 million people in the United States with a criminal record. Let me tell you how I met Anthony. Several years ago, I left my job in public defense to work in public policy. I thought that if I could change the laws that were so acutely affecting my clients, I could be a better advocate. So I took a job at the Council on Crime and Justice in downtown Minneapolis. It's unfortunately no longer there. The nonprofit is no longer there. The city of Minneapolis is still standing strong. And my focus was on criminal records. We would hold criminal records expungement seminars all across the state of Minnesota, and at least once in the Hennepin County Government Center's basement room. Now, for those of you who do not know, a criminal records expungement is just a legal way. It's a petition that you file to the court asking the court to take an extraordinary step and, in theory, wipe your slate clean, right? Give you a fresh start. Seal your record from public view. So it's in this space, in this subterranean space, in this abysmal, windowless space in the government center, where men, women, youth, all poor, predominantly people of color, would line up for hours waiting for the opportunity to speak to an attorney, someone who could, at least in theory, help them wipe that slate clean. One night, I'm sure the sun had long since set, when in walked our last participant. Anthony was tall and thin and black and clearly distraught. As he wended his way across the room toward my intake table, he pulled from his back pocket a copy of his criminal record, a printout he had received from a computer terminal 2 flights up. Given this man's clear distress, I wondered, what could this record contain? How long must his rap sheet be? How severe must his convictions be? How crushing must his restitution be? And how was I going to break it to him that no matter how long it's been, no matter how far he's come, no matter how much it hurts, there's no court that will expunge his record? You may imagine my surprise when I opened that record to find that it contained no more than a theft, and a minor one at that. I let out a short laugh of relief. Even if the court doesn't expunge the matter, I said, it's not like your life is over. And with that, Anthony began to cry. He told me that earlier that day he had in fact considered taking his own life. You see, what was just a theft to me, to Anthony, was a lost job. It was missed housing payments, it was skipped meals, it was door after door slammed in his face, it was the loss of respect from his friends and family, the loss of a sense of self, the loss of hope. Now, around the same time, I've been traveling all across the state of Minnesota, speaking to legislators and employers, licensing boards, and landlords, imploring them to give my clients a second chance. Time and again, I would hear, you can't trust a con. Once a criminal, always a criminal. Those words came back to me as I looked at Anthony, and I thought, hold on, how many times had I taken something that wasn't mine? Now, I considered my own criminality before. I think many of us have, but not like this. I hadn't thought about what life would be like living under the suffocating stigma of a criminal record, living within the shadow of having been caught, of having carried that label. How many things had I stolen over the years? Illegal substances consumed, boundaries tested, rules bended, laws broken. How had my skin color and my zip code prevented me from ever being within the crosshairs of the criminal justice system? And what would life be like if I didn't have the luxury to forget? 1 in 4 people in the United States, 1 in 4 people here in Minnesota doesn't have the luxury to wonder what life would be like. 1 in 4 people in the United States and 1 in 4 people here in Minnesota has a criminal record. I contend that 4 in 4 have a criminal history. That is, we have all violated the law. Only a portion of us have that record that proclaims it. For the past few years, I've been asking people like me, 75% of people in the United States with criminal histories but no record, what have you had the luxury to forget? Today, I want to share with you just a handful of the more than 400 stories I have collected over the years. Now, today we're going to focus on crimes mostly committed before brains were fully developed. That's not the full story, absolutely not, but for many, as you may know, especially those of you in sociology courses, that's when the bulk of criminal activity occurs, right? And given our current location, I think it's a good place to focus on. Now, some of the stories that I'm going to share with you of crimes committed before brains were fully developed are going to be petty. Some will be serious, some happened decades ago, and others a bit more recently. In doing so, I hope to offer, for those of you who do not already have a personal connection with the U.S. criminal or juvenile legal systems, a way of examining the true effects of those systems upon a person and the disparate effects of those systems upon people living in poverty, people of color, and indigenous people across the U.S. This will be a call for reason, for equity, and for mercy, and acknowledged ownership in the problem as well as the solution. This will be about how we see each other by how we see ourselves. But first, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. This is a graph with data taken from the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics and put together by the Sentencing Project. It shows the U.S. state and federal prison population between 1925 and 2017. You can see that for a good portion of the graph, the number of people we put in cages in the United States was relatively steady until things started to change in the 1970s, pick up speed by the 1980s, and by the 1990s, our incarceration population exploded. What are just a few of the many policies and practices that have led to this mass incarceration